Yo, what's going on, guys? So over the past year, the single biggest request that I've received on YouTube and the stream is to update the LoN Walker build to Torment 13. And honestly, with the health in Torment 13, Locust Swarm damage in its current state just doesn't really scale high enough for it to be viable. As sad as that makes me, I love the build too, it just really doesn't work. So I was thinking with the buffs to the Mask of Jerem and the Short Man's Finger in patch 2.6.1, why don't we just put together a similar build that focuses solely on the pet damage and a ridiculous amount of movement speed to just burst from Elite and Champion pack to Elite and Champion pack. And honestly, it turns out it's really freaking good. Now this setup isn't quite as lazy as the old Walker build because you are casting Paranado a decent amount of the time to group enemies together to take advantage of the cleave from the Gargantuans, but it's still a pretty lazy build. I mean, really, you're only casting your movement speed abilities and Paranado, and that's it. Gargantuans are your sole focus in the build. They are your main damage. You're going to get a little bit of damage from the zombie dogs, but the zombie dogs are really there more for utility than anything else. The great thing about this build is it's able to utilize just about all of the movement speed, abilities, and gear that is available to the Witch Doctor. We're going to get up to 300% movement speed at times when Horrify and Spirit Walk Severance are active. The runs that you're watching are with 800 Paragon to simulate early on in the season, and I didn't do a single run that was over 3 minutes. Every single run was 3 minutes or under. Alright, let's take a look at the abilities and the gear. Now I'm just going to do a quick rundown. I'll put out a more in-depth guide once we get closer to the release of this patch. So first up, Gargantuan Humongoid, our main source of damage. It cleaves enemies. And don't be afraid to recast these on top of elites and champions if you need to, if they're off attacking things that they shouldn't be. Summon Zombie Dogs, Leeching Beasts. This is really just there for the life on hit. Just to give you a little bit of life regen. It's not something that's necessary to the build, but I like it as a utility spell. Potentially, you could switch this build up a little bit and run the Homunculus on your character and then run Sacrifice in place here. And then run Sacrifice with the Provoke the Pack rune to get even more damage to your Gargs. Piranha's Paranado. This is to group mobs together. This is extremely important to maximize the cleave from the Gargantuans. Spirit Walk Severance for a gigantic burst of speed. This is where the majority of your speed comes from in the build. Soul Harvest, Soul to Waste. You gain 5% increased movement speed for each enemy harvested. We're going to run the Sacred Harvester as well, so we're getting 10 stacks of this for 50% increased movement speed. Horrified Stalker for 20% more movement speed. For the passives, Midnight Feast for more Garg damage. Fierce Loyalty for, again, even more movement speed. And whenever one of your pets is not in combat, you get 15% more movement speed on top of the 15% you already get, which isn't going to be a constant thing, but it does come into play from time to time. Confidence Ritual for more damage, and then Grave Injustice for cooldown reduction. And the fifth passive is Gruesome Feast on the Hellfire Amulet, which you're going to have 5 stacks of this the majority of the time with how quickly you're going to be killing elites and champions, and it's a gigantic damage increase. Next up, the gear. Got the Mask of Jerem for the Helm slot with that 200% increased damage with this new patch. Hellfire Amulet is what you want on your neck slot. Shoulders can be anything. You want Taskers for your gloves. Aquila for your chest piece for the damage mitigation. Your bracers will either be Nim bracers or Lacumbras. You can run either one in the cube and then either one on your character. Wailing Host and Litany of the Undaunted for your rings, of course, since it's an LoN build. The Crimson Buff Belt for movement speed. Hexing Pants because you're going to be constantly moving, so you get a nice damage increase from this. Thing of the Deep for pickup radius. I've got the Sacred Harvester on my character currently, in the Engiom and the Cube. Again, you can flip-flop those. Either way, it doesn't really matter. For your boot slot, you can really run just about anything. Firewalkers does give you a little bit more damage, but I think Illusory Boots is probably your best bet. The majority of the time, you're going to be in Spirit Walk, so you're getting to move through enemies freely anyways. But there are times where you're not in Spirit Walk, and Illusory Boots would come in handy. Legendary gems are Bane of the Trapped, Enforcer, and Bane of the Powerful. If you feel like you are low on toughness, you could always swap any of these gems out for an esoteric alteration. For the Kanai's Cube, we've got the Engiom, the Lacumbra's Ornament, and then of course the Short Man's Finger, which is mandatory to the build. So that'll about wrap it up, guys. I hope you enjoyed the build. I am having a blast playing it, and I'm going to continue to refine it over the course of this patch. So anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, as always, and I'll see you next time.